He was only 20 years old with more chart hits than most artists get in a lifetime. Millions of fans, a #1 album, and controversy trailing behind him almost as fast as his fame grew. On June 18th, 2018, that story ended in a parking lot outside a motorcycle dealership in South Florida, gunned down for a Louis V bag stuffed with $50,000 inside. In this episode, we're breaking down the short, violent, chaotic life of Jahseh Onfroy, the rapper the world knew as XXXTentacion. His meteoric rise out of SoundCloud, the domestic violence case that shadowed his career, the robbery that killed him, and the trial that followed. But before we get into all that, I need you to hit that like button and hit subscribe now. It's the Crime Street Journal. Plantation, Florida, January 23rd, 1998. That's where Jahseh Dwayne Ricardo Onfroy was born to Jamaican parents. He'd spend most of his childhood not in Plantation, but in Lauderhill, a working-class pocket of Broward County that would shape everything about who he became. Trouble found him early. By his teenage years, Onfroy had already cycled through the juvenile justice system. It was inside a detention center that he started writing music bars scratched out as a way to survive the boredom and the isolation. When he came home, the pen didn't stop moving. In June 2013, he uploaded his first track to SoundCloud. Nobody was watching yet. Nobody knew the name, but the platform he was building on was about to explode, and he was about to explode with it. By 2014 and 2015, Onfroy was becoming a fixture in an underground scene built entirely on the internet lo-fi beats, distorted 808s, raw and unfiltered emotion. They'd come to call it SoundCloud rap, and XXXTentacion was one of its founding faces. But as the music got bigger, so did the violence surrounding him. In late 2015, he was arrested and charged with home invasion robbery with a firearm and aggravated battery with a firearm. He pleaded no contest. Probation followed. It would not be his last arrest, and it would not be his last act of violence against someone close to him. Then came Look at Me, released in 2016. The track didn't just go viral. It clawed its way onto the Billboard Hot 100, eventually peaking in the top 40. A kid who'd been in and out of juvenile detention was suddenly a bona fide hitmaker, courted by major labels, landing a multi-million-dollar deal with the Capitol Music Group imprint. But fame didn't slow down the chaos. It amplified it. In October 2015, Onfroy was arrested on charges connected to the brutal abuse of his then-girlfriend, who was pregnant at the time. The charges were severe: aggravated battery of a pregnant woman, domestic battery by strangulation, false imprisonment, and witness tampering. Court documents painted a disturbing picture of ongoing abuse. Onfroy denied the allegations, but the case followed him everywhere through his 2017 breakout, through his debut album 17, through his sophomore record debuting at #1 on the Billboard 200 in March 2018. He was, at the exact same time, one of the biggest rising stars in hip-hop and a man awaiting trial for the alleged brutalization of the mother of his unborn child. Streaming platforms wrestled publicly with what to do with him. Spotify tried to limit his promotion under a new conduct policy, then backed off under industry pressure. Fans didn't leave. If anything, the numbers kept climbing. By the time of his death, his YouTube channel alone had racked up billions of views. He was a walking contradiction, an artist who rapped about pain and self-destruction to millions of kids who felt unseen, while himself facing accusations of inflicting exactly that kind of pain on someone else. June 18th, 2018. Just after 3:30 in the afternoon, Onfroy pulled into the parking lot of Riva Motorsports in Deerfield Beach, an upscale dealership specializing in high-end motorcycles and watercraft. He'd just come from the bank. He was shopping for a new bike. As he tried to leave the lot, a dark SUV cut him off, blocking his car in. Two men jumped out, masked, armed. They didn't say much, they didn't need to. This wasn't about a beef, a diss track, or a rivalry. According to investigators, this was a robbery, plain and simple. They wanted what was in the car. Onfroy fought back. It cost him everything. The gunman tore a Louis Vuitton bag out of the vehicle, $50,000 in cash stuffed inside. In the struggle, shots were fired. Onfroy was hit multiple times. The attackers ran back to the SUV and vanished into traffic. Police arrived within minutes. Onfroy was found in the driver's seat, unresponsive. He was rushed to the hospital where he never made it out alive. The news broke fast, first from entertainment outlets, then confirmed by the Broward County Sheriff's Office. Within hours, the hip-hop world was in mourning. Artists across the industry, from Kanye West to J. Cole to Kendrick Lamar, reacted publicly to the death of a 20-year-old who, love him or hate him, had undeniably changed the sound of a generation. But behind the tributes, detectives were already working the case as exactly what it was: an armed robbery that turned into a homicide. Investigators pulled surveillance footage from the dealership and surrounding businesses. They tracked the SUV. They worked informants, phone records, and street-level intelligence across Broward County. Piece by piece, the case started coming together. 4 men were eventually identified and charged: Michael Boatwright, Trayvon Newsome, Dedrick Williams, and Robert Allen. Prosecutors laid out the roles: Boatwright and Newsome as the gunman who approached the car, Williams behind the wheel of the SUV, and Allen tied to the planning and getaway. Robert Allen took a plea deal, pleading guilty to a lesser charge and agreeing to testify against the others. He was ultimately sentenced to several years in prison, followed by a lengthy probation term. The other 3 went to trial. The trial of Boatwright, Newsome, and Williams played out in a Broward County courtroom nearly 5 years after the killing. Prosecutors leaned heavily on the security footage from the dealership parking lot, grainy, chaotic video that showed 2 masked men approaching Onfroy's car, guns drawn in the final seconds of his life. The defense tried a different angle entirely, pointing to Onfroy's public feud with another major recording artist and suggesting detectives hadn't looked hard enough in that direction. Prosecutors countered that there was no evidence connecting anyone outside the 4 defendants to the shooting. It was, they argued, exactly what it looked like from the start: a robbery gone fatal. After more than a week of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict. Boatwright, Newsome, and Williams were convicted on all counts: premeditated first-degree murder and armed robbery. The sentences were severe. Boatwright received 2 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 30 additional years. Newsome and Williams were each sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For a case that started with a masked robbery outside a motorcycle shop, it ended with 3 men who will never walk free again. Jahseh Onfroy left behind a son, born just months after his death, and a legacy that's still being argued over in comment sections and courtrooms of public opinion to this day. To millions, he was a voice for the unheard, a kid from Lauderhill who turned juvenile detention scribbles into a career that streamed billions of times over. To others, he was never able to outrun the violence that defined so much of his short life, both the violence done to him and the violence he was accused of doing to others. And there you have it, the story of XXXTentacion, the rise, the controversy, and the murder of one of the most streamed and most polarizing artists of his generation. If you like this video, support the channel with a like and subscribe. Comment down below with your thoughts on this story. Thanks for watching. It's the Crime Street Journal.